Hey guys, thanks for pressing play. We got a great one for you today. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. A lot of people in the Son of Sam story, we talk about the crime, shootings, cults, occultic activity, Untermeyer Park, all this esoteric stuff. But what a lot of people fail to remember is that at its heart, the Son of Sam story is a story about human beings, people with histories, with pasts, with childhoods. And none more obvious is that where people forget that is in the case of David Berkowitz, right? We have two stories that basically two narratives of Berkowitz that people know. We have the first one, the official one, which is that this is crazy loner, never had any friends, ended up becoming a vicious, mad serial killer on the orders of a talking dog, right? That's story number one. And then, of course, we have the second story, which is that Berkowitz was able to make some friends, as crazy as they were. He was a member of a cult. They influenced him. He got involved with all these strange people and ended up becoming a mass murderer, right? So we have these two competing stories, but the reality is Berkowitz was a human being as well, with a past, with a childhood, with childhood friends. And it's very rare online in the history of the Son of Sam that actual childhood friends of his have been interviewed. So to that end, we have a great one for you today. Today we have Maria with us. Hey Maria, say hello to everybody.
Hi everybody.
All right, this is going to be a real great one. And of course, who's sitting next to Gary? I'm sorry, who's sitting next to Maria, but the great Gary. And of course, we remember Gary from the video that we did about Valentina Suriani. So just real quick, Maria, you were friends with a certain person that we're talking about. Who was this person?
Well, we used to call him Dave. That's how we knew him. So
we'll get to that in a second. Sorry to cut you off, but I just thought that this story was so amazing, how this all came to be, that I wanted Gary to actually talk about how it came to pass that we're all sitting here, because the reality of the situation is that we have an amazing degree of separation here, right? Let's think about this. So we've already established that Maria was friends with David Berkowitz, and of course Gary, unfortunately, his best friend was killed by David Berkowitz. So we're sitting here, two people. Gary's friend was killed by Maria's friend. That's the most blunt way that we can put this.
I don't hold it against her, of course.
Right. Well, I mean, you shouldn't. But how did you guys meet?
Well, what happened was my puppy and our mutual friend's puppy, her name is Robin, owns a salon, and every 3 weeks or so, because they're litter mates, they're sisters, we get the two girls together, two female puppies, so they can have a play date. And that day, although I knew Maria because she's a neighbor, that day Maria was hanging out with us, and I happened to mention that the video tribute that you and I did, Manny, about Valentina, just had been put up for Thanksgiving, and I figured let them know about it, and they can watch it. Then all of a sudden, Maria started talking about, oh, I know Dave. I know him for years, and then she started telling me stories, and I said, whoa, I was like John Belushi in Animal House when the horse died. Holy shit, holy shit. And then all of a sudden she started telling me stories. I said, stop, wait a minute. I said, I have a friend, Manny, and we're doing research. I help him every so often. Would you mind speaking to him? And Maria said, sure. You know, she grew up in the kind of area that I grew up in, Yonkers, Bronx area. So I immediately called Manny and asked him if he was sitting down, and here we are. Maria is down here to talk to us. You know, she's graciously accepted to talk to us.
Yeah, we're very happy.
I'm dying to hear. I had to stop her from telling the stories, and so I'm going to hear these stories new like everyone else.
Right, exactly. Thank you, Gary. And that's kind of the way I like to operate. When Gary called me, I'll never forget that call. He did say, are you sitting down? And I remember I sat down because I didn't know what to expect. But I was blown away, and I called Maria right away, and she was graciously accepted. And boy, and I said to her, I don't want to hear the stories. I do not want to hear anything until we're actually sitting down. So to that end, let's just sort of get right into it. Maria, how did you come to know Dave, as you called him? And start from the beginning, and do not worry about time. Everybody's going to be very interested in this.
Okay. Well, we moved into Co-op City in 1970, in January of 1970, actually the last part of it. And I would not leave my room. So we had cousins in the building, and they had a daughter that was my age. So they made her come up to my room.
And how old were you at the time?
13, 14.
Okay.
And so she asked me if, we got to be friends. And then in the springtime, she says, oh, you know what, can you go to the supermarket with me? And I said, okay, fine. Well, I wish I had a video camera for this. Shopping center number 1 was like Woodstock.
Okay.
It had so many teenagers that you would not believe it. We had 2 levels of the shopping center. There were kids, I mean, all over the square of the shopping center. Down below, the kids were playing instruments and singing and the whole bit. And she stopped to say hello to her friends and introduce me and stuff like that. And it blew my mind. So the next day, again, she came up to my house. Come on, let's go out. We went to the shopping center. We met more friends and stuff like that. And that's how Co-op City opened up for me. I never thought in a million years I'd have so many friends.
And where did you come from? Like, where'd you move from?
From Sheridan Avenue, so it's the South Bronx.
Right, and there wasn't as many kids around Sheridan?
No, I just knew some of the kids from my building that were my age.
Now, you don't seem like a shy, reserved person to me. But were you saying that you were shy and reserved when you got to Co-op City, or?
No, I was just against it. I didn't want to leave my friends.
Ah, okay.
So I was fighting it.
Fighting, right, the new move.
Yeah, so by my mother getting this other teenager to come up and pull me out of my shell.
Right.
Because I used to ride my bike back to my old neighborhood. And it was an easy ride because going to Sheridan Avenue was all uphill, and going home was all downhill, so it was easy. Anyhow, my brother, who was 5 years younger than me, met these teenage boys and became friends with them. And my brother was about 9, when they were like, I guess, 16, 17.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't hang out with them, but, you know, he said hello and whatever conversation they had. And I guess he told them that he had a sister, and then eventually he introduced me to them. And it just so happened that John lived next door to me and had 2 brothers. So there were 3 boys, and I had a crush on his younger brother. So anyhow, these guys, Eddie, Lenny, Dave, John, when they wanted to get together, they would go past my apartment to see John. And they would knock on the door, and they would, you know, if they were ringing the intercom, sometimes it rang at my house,
right,
so I could hear them talking or whatever. The girls all wanted to come up to my room because I had the master bedroom, and we would try with glass cups and try to see if we could hear their conversations and stuff like that. But we couldn't, of course. But yeah, it was just fun girls, teenage stuff that we did. Eventually, Eddie, no, actually I used to call him Ed. He was like my big brother.
Okay.
I used to see the guys putting out the fires, and they would say, you know, we're just trying to be volunteer firemen, and we're learning how to put out fires. And
so it was your friend Eddie and a group of boys?
It was just Ed, Ted, Eddie, Ed, Lenny, Dave, and John. There was somebody, Herb, I think it was, a kid named Herb. I don't remember his last name.
And these were all sort of like pseudo volunteer firemen. They were just kids interested in the fire.
Yeah,
putting
there was no established fire department or whatever. It's not like when they did the River Bay Ambulance Corps
Right,
that they were established and they were like a corporation kind of,
right,
but on a volunteer basis where they actually got donations and stuff like that. They also had ambulances and they made calls and stuff like that.
right.
The boys, on the other hand, would just like find a location and put together wood and stuff like that and whatever they could find to burn, and then they would set the fire and then go and put it out.
Wait a second. So John, Ed, Lenny, and these guys would do that? They would
Yeah.
light fires and then put it out.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Now I don't remember if John was doing it with them. I don't remember exactly, but I know it was Ed and Lenny and Dave, and I don't remember who else.
Wait, and Dave was part of this.
Yes.
So Dave was part of a volunteer, sort of pseudo kind of teenage volunteer firefighters, but in reality they were lighting fires, you're saying?
Yeah, they were lighting the fires so that they can put it out. That was their training.
Oh, wait, so they weren't doing this as like an arson
prank.
thing to get credit.
No.
Oh, that's
they
what
were
I-
just training themselves to put out the fires.
Okay, because that's a good distinction, because I
Yeah.
thought that we were hearing that Berkowitz
I
was...
thought they were just destructive and they just got a kick out of starting it and,
yes.
and putting it out.
Right.
Oh.
So these guys, these teenagers, including Dave, was they were training themselves. Now, back it up a little bit, because Dave's already now part of the story. How did you actually meet Dave?
By my building, now Co-op City, after I guess there was so many teenagers, Co-op City or River Bay didn't realize how many teenagers and how to control us.
Mm-hmm.
So we got away with murder because there wasn't enough cops to control us. So we did whatever we did and we didn't get in trouble, or we got very little trouble, just enough to scare you.
Right.
So in the shopping center at night, the kids were playing ball and stuff like that, whether they were throwing a baseball or a football. Some windows got broken
Okay.
from the store owners. So the store owners got to the point where they were complaining, and we got kicked out of the shopping center. So that was another problem, because now all these teenagers, if there was 1,000 of us or a couple hundred, whatever it was, we scattered all over Co-op. So that's how we broke up into groups. So I came from building 6, so it was a building 6 group.
Mhm.
Then there was a building 7 group, building 8, and so on and so forth. So a lot of our friends had siblings that hung out in other buildings. So we all kind of knew each other, but sometimes we weren't, we didn't socialize together.
Right.
So anyway, I remember coming out of my building, and my brother was with me, and he says, "Oh, look, these are the guys I made friends with." And one of them was David Berkowitz.
And which building did he live in?
He lived in building 3, and he was right across the street from me.
Okay, so that was like a different building. So as you were saying before, maybe different social groups and stuff like that. But your brother became friends with Dave, and was Dave hanging out with this John, Lenny, and
Yes.
and what was it, Eddie? No,
Ed, well,
right.
no, it's not really Eddie, it's Ed.
Ed, right.
Yeah.
So clearly Berkowitz had friends.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Was he tight with them?
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah, they were like brothers.
okay, all right. So here's a guy who's able to make friends as a
Mhm.
child. Now, what was your first impression? Do you remember?
He was a nice, shy boy,
He was shy,
Yeah.
but so there was no major impression the first time you met him,
Oh, he was just normal, like any other kid.
right?
I mean, he wound up dating Iris for a short while.
Now, who's Iris?
That was that Iris gay. I don't want to say her last name just in case.
That's okay. So he had a girlfriend even.
Yeah.
Oh boy, oh boy.
Was he with her when you met him? Was he
No, it happened after.
after?
Yeah.
So what happened next? You were introduced to this group of guys, including Dave, and then how did that go? What was the next
we started hanging out, even though like it was from building 2, I forget where, how Lenny got into this, because I don't remember if he lived in Co-op City. I know he wound up in Mount Vernon.
Okay.
The last I had seen him, he was working for a company that delivered oxygen tanks.
So did Berkowitz? He didn't seem troubled to you in any real way.
No.
Did he talk about his family? Did you ever go up to his house?
No, not that I remember.
Did you know that he was adopted?
Yes, at the end.
At the end, meaning?
Right before he left for the Army.
Okay.
So what happened was when the guys started graduating out of high school, it was in the height of the Vietnam War.
Okay.
And which broke my heart because then they all started joining up for the military. I went to the Coast Guard, David Berkowitz went to the Army, and so that group just split up.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to write letters back and forth to Ed. Ed and I were very close. He was like my big brother. And there was one letter in particular, I wish I would have kept it. He warned me to stay away from Dave.
Now this was after the Army or during?
During the Army.
During the Army.
They were still in the military, both. They kept in touch. When the guys had leave to come home, they came back to Building 6. Even though they didn't live in Building 6, it was the Building 6 group.
In the military, they were in the same.
No.
Oh, but they kept in touch even though they were in separate.
Right.
I see.
So there were times when they came home and they were together,
Right.
even though
On
they were
leave,
different branches. So, and we'd see them. What happened was, from what I was told, the parents waited until he was a teenager, like I guess until around the time when he graduated high school,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when they told him he was adopted.
Oh, so he didn't know this.
Right.
Before
That's
he
the
went.
story I was told.
Okay.
That upset him so much, that's when he joined the Army, and he didn't tell them until he was packed and ready to leave.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So just back up real quick though, because I'm definitely interested in this Army story, but we kind of took it from you guys being 13 or however you were to the Army. Like, what was a typical day like hanging out with Dave before the Army?
Like anybody, we just hung around, talked, we went places, we did stuff together. There was one night, he got so drunk that we took him to the diner that was across the street in that shopping center 1,
Mm-hmm.
and we gave him black coffee to drink until he sobered up. Why he did that, I don't remember. It was 45 years ago.
About how old was he when that happened?
Maybe 18, 19.
Okay, and what was the age difference between you and him?
Maybe 3 years.
3 years. Did he ever try to do anything untoward, any moves on you, anything like that?
He was always a gentleman.
Always a gentleman.
Yeah.
Because you had said, and we'll just say it here, even though Berkowitz is obviously guilty of a couple of these Son of Sam murders, that you actually were pro Berkowitz in the sense that you felt that his story hadn't been told adequately, like in the media.
Oh yeah, we all said that. The whole group of us, that we did not understand why the press didn't come after us to find out what kind of a kid he was, all the background, like you're doing now.
Right.
Why just throw him into the fire before you found out that he was a really nice guy and something happened to turn him around that affected him so badly?
Well, he was set up to take the fall anyway. So.
It sounds like he was set up to take the fall. Did he have, was he bullied or made fun of? Was he the joke butter of, like, did people make fun of him in the group? And
No.
so was it anything where he was like this socially awkward loner with no friends?
No, there was none of that.
Something must have triggered his mind when he.
He was
Before
in
he
the
left.
Army.
No, I mean something must have triggered his mind when he was told he was adopted. I mean that.
Well, yeah, that kicked it off.
Yeah.
And then something happened in the Army that Ed wanted me to stay away from him.
Do you remember, though, his personality changing before the Army?
No.
So he was told, presumably before the Army, that he was adopted, but nothing really, he didn't become a different person, dark, lonely,
No.
None of that.
None of it.
What was like a typical thing that he would talk about? What were some of David Berkowitz's interests?
I can't even tell you, it's too long ago. But when he did come home after he finished his, the tour with the Army, he came home. We met again, a bunch of us that knew him, that we all hung out, and we went back to his apartment in Yonkers.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, there was 2 times. And we just had a goof. I mean, we were just, laughing and joking and...
Was it, what year was this? Because he supposedly moved to Yonkers in 75 or 6.
Yeah, that's about that time.
Was it the apartment, the one on Pine Street?
I think so. I'm not 100% sure. Again, it's too many years ago.
Right.
There's no record of him being in any other apartment.
Well, what's interesting is that I have eyewitnesses saying that they thought he lived on Valentine Avenue in South Yonkers. I have another person.
There's a Valentine Avenue in South Yonkers?
Yeah.
Oh, I know there's one in the Bronx.
Right. I have a witness who said he lived on Lake Avenue in Yonkers
Oh, so maybe...
with a roommate. Did he have a roommate when you
No.
And when you walked into this apartment, did it look like the apartment of a madman? Were there scrawlings or writings on the
No,
wall?
the apartment was clean. There wasn't a lot of furniture because he had just moved in.
Okay.
So it must have been his first apartment after he came out of the Army.
You sure it was Yonkers and not New Rochelle?
No,
It was Yonkers.
it was Yonkers.
So this had to have been during the Son of Sam era.
Yeah.
What was, this is just amazing stuff. I'm just trying to think like anything else from before we get into the sort of the Yonkers and the Son of Sam era. Just anything up in Co-op City that still needs to be, that you still want to talk about.
Well, there was one time he was driving the Co-op City cab.
Okay.
And I rode by him on my bike, and he yelled at me for some reason, and because I was wild on the bike, and he stopped in front of Building 3, and I went by him, and then I stopped, and I went, "Oh, hi, Dave, how you doing?" And we started talking, and he's like, "You've got to stop doing what you're doing on that bike. You're going to get hit by a car one day," and the whole bit. And he was very protective. He wasn't a cruel person. And that's the biggest shock when they finally caught him and everything was David Berkowitz. It didn't even dawn on me that it was Dave. So I was in my first office job in 1976, and I was called to the office, to a desk that had the phone, and my girlfriend called me up, and she said, "Did you hear the news? Did you hear it?" And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Did you see the papers? It's all on the front page." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, David Berkowitz." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" "Dave is David Berkowitz. They caught Dave killing people." And I was like, "What?" I almost fainted. The papers were right there, and I looked at them, and I didn't even see him.
Must have been surreal.
It was.
Yeah.
It was the shock of a lifetime. It's something I don't think I will ever forget. Looking at the Daily News, looking at him, and like, that's not Dave. He looked so weird, deranged, just like he wasn't the sweet, nice guy that I remember. So.
Do you ever look at videos of him now?
I don't see too much. Like I watched the Netflix story.
Mm-hmm. But I'm just curious if you've seen any modern videos of him giving interviews, if that's more of the Dave you remember.
I saw him, I don't know if it was 2020, but I did see an interview of him in jail.
Uh-huh.
and he looked so old, and he was very mellow at
Still
that
bald
time.
now, right?
Yeah.
Or he shaved his head, I don't know.
No, I think he lost his hair.
Oh, okay.
Because he had beautiful blue eyes. I mean,
Yeah.
he was a really good-looking kid.
He was a
but-
muscular kid too. Was he? He wasn't a weakling or what? What was
More
his build?
stocky, right? More stocky.
What was his build like?
Like a normal 17-year-old. He wasn't, because they didn't lift weights back then.
Right.
So, I mean, even in the army, his body didn't, change. Like, he wasn't all muscular or whatever.
So there was no, and not that I'm trying to lead this or anything, I'm just trying to just flesh this out because I want people to get the true picture of Berkowitz. There was no rumors whatsoever in Co-op City pre-Army that this was a weird guy, stay away
No.
from him, he's a pervert, he hates any of that, none.
None of that.
Now talk about his relationship with this Iris, as much as you know about it.
They were just boyfriend and girlfriend, and I don't know why they broke up.
What year was this? Do you remember how old he was?
It was around the time when I met him, so he was 17.
17.
So we, like when we were teenagers when we first met, we could have a boyfriend for a week, break up, and have another boyfriend.
Right.
The boyfriend would have another girlfriend.
Yeah, a
and-
lot of that went on back then.
Yeah, so I mean, it wasn't a big deal if they broke up, so they broke up.
But it wasn't like a serious,
No.
didn't seem like the love of his life or anything. Did you ever speak to Iris about him?
No, we weren't that close.
You weren't that close.
Yeah. I mean, we know each other, but it wasn't like she hung out at Building 6 for a long time.
Right.
Because, I mean, I still have friends from Building 6 that I could pick up the phone and call them.
Right. Maybe one day we should think about having a little David Berkowitz roundtable of people.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get that going.
See, back then I went to Co-op City a lot because my friend's cousin lived there. So we would go there once in a while, hang out, and I didn't know Maria then,
Right.
but who knows how many Berkowitz might have walked by me? Who knows?
Exactly.
Who knows?
I mean, it's just amazing that
Yeah.
you two are sitting together,
Yeah.
given the degrees of separation
Right.
between you.
Right.
And how you both met later, especially during while I'm doing this video series. It's like the hand of God making
Yeah,
this
yeah.
happen. So I'm just trying to think of like other questions about. Did you ever meet his parents?
No. No, like, I don't know when they moved out.
Mm-hmm.
My aunt moved into that building. I don't know, I don't remember what the apartment number was if my aunt actually moved into that apartment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Now, pre-arrest, you said that you were in Berkowitz's apartment once or twice. How many people were there with you?
Oh, a bunch. I guess maybe a carload, maybe 6 people.
6 people. So even in his 20s, when he's supposedly this deranged lunatic who hates women, he's hanging around with his old friends from Co-op City in his apartment.
Acting normal.
Just totally normal.
Mhm.
He didn't give any hints of anything?
No. No. And the weird thing is that he worked in the post office at night,
Uh-huh.
and I think I read it or heard about it somehow on the news, that he was actually walking his coworkers that were women to their cars to make sure that they got home safe.
Well, this dovetails exactly with a story that you might find intriguing, and maybe you have an insight into this. We interviewed a guy, Dave,
Mm-hmm.
who didn't know Berkowitz at all, but with Dave was his friend Ed. Ed's uncle lived on Pine Street in the house next to Berkowitz's apartment building. One day, Ed's uncle comes out, and his car has a dent in it. And you know how when people, sometimes they dent your car, they leave a note on it? Well, there was a note on his car, and it said, "I am so sorry, I dented your car, this is totally my fault, here's my number," signed David Berkowitz. So here's a guy who's supposedly going out and killing all these people, and he feels bad about denting a guy's
got a
car,
heart.
that he leaves a note. What do you have any thoughts on that? Is that the Dave that you knew?
Yeah, yeah. He would not hurt a fly.
Oh boy, amazing, amazing. And then And then he goes out and he does a couple of these.
A couple of these where allegedly, I mean, the official story is that he killed your best
He
friend.
got in with the wrong crowd. It's obvious.
Did he ever talk about the people he was hanging with in Yonkers?
No, we just did our Co-op City thing. It had nothing to do with Yonkers, his friends there, and
Was this going and hanging out with Dave at his house? Was this like had the feel of like a reunion of long lost friends, or was it just a continuation of your friendship?
yeah, it was just a continuation. Yeah.
So it wasn't this, hey, we haven't seen each other in years, let's try to reconnect, and now we're in our 20s trying to act sophisticated. It wasn't anything like that. It was just
Yeah, it was just Co-op City has this unique bond with our friends from back then. Many years ago, I had a roommate, and she moved away. She wound up getting married. We hadn't seen each other in 10 years. I decided that I wanted to go visit her, and a couple of my other friends decided they wanted to go with me. So we all got together and we went down to North Carolina to visit her. Now, before we actually got there, her husband turned around and says, "Do you really think that this is going to work out? You haven't seen these people in 10 years. Are you going to have anything to talk about? Are you going to, you know?" And she said, "Wait, you'll understand how this works."
mm-hmm.
Well, it was like we never left each other, you know. So we just picked up where we left off from the last time we saw each other, and this is how it was with David. So we just pick up where we left off, and this is how we are with our friends today. I have a lot of my Co-op City friends on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and I tried to look it up. We were all talking about David Berkowitz. There was not a negative thing about him. I tried to find the conversation, but I couldn't.
Right.
So, I mean, there were still people from Co-op City who know him or who knew him and don't believe this whole scenario about him being this evil person. You know, so, you know, I know the press can turn things around, because when I was in Evander, we were in this
Evander Childs High School,
Oh,
right?
you were in Evander?
Those from
Oh,
not from the Bronx will be like, huh? What did she just say?
Yeah, I didn't go there, but yeah, everybody knew Evander's
Yeah.
not a place you want to go to now.
Oh no, you didn't want to
Oh.
go to in the 70s either.
Yeah, it was not a great.
But when you were there, I'm sorry, we interrupted.
Yeah. So we had this peer group or something to that effect, and we used to just talk and whatever. So the Daily News had come in to do a story on it. Wow, what a spin. I mean, they made it, they sensationalized it. There was no truth to what they were talking about.
So you guys were doing a little talk about Berkowitz. This is what I'm.
No. I'm just saying how I realized how what you read in the newspapers or what you might hear on the news isn't always the truth.
Right.
They spin it around, so you're like, oh, I gotta watch this.
Right.
You know.
To this day, that's what they do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So,
into
I mean,
overdrive.
Yeah. So I mean, I could just imagine how they spun David Berkowitz into this evil man
Right.
when he wasn't really in reality. I mean, today I think I would, I don't want to go to jail to see him, but if they let him out and I had the opportunity to walk up to him and say, "Hi Dave, how you doing?"
Right.
I would do it in a heartbeat and not be afraid.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the vibe I get from David Berkowitz whenever I see videos. He just seems like a kind of guy you would sit at a bar with and have a conversation about sports and leave going, hey, this guy was like a nice guy. I wouldn't. Now, there's just a couple rumors, though, going around Yonkers that I wanted to talk to you about regarding this David's time in Yonkers and the Son of Sam years. He was going around to various police officers. He would be hanging around in bars, and I have one son of a police officer who said that his father and mother hung out with Berkowitz at a bar in Getty Square in Yonkers. And that Berkowitz would repeatedly tell them that he was a policeman. Was Berkowitz ever walking around talking about being a cop or anything?
No,
No?
not that I ever.
What was his attitude towards the police?
I really don't know.
Right.
It never really came up, but I mean, it can't be that bad because John became a policeman. So,
One of his friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And now, did you ever know him as an auxiliary policeman? Because I think he was in...
Yeah. But again, it's so many years ago, I don't
Right,
remember.
right.
I mean, he came up to my apartment, you know, like if my mother had like a little birthday party for me and a bunch of kids came up, he would be there, he would be invited. I don't know if I have pictures of him.
Oh, you were reading my mind. You were reading my mind. That was my next question.
It just popped into my head. So yeah, if you have pictures,
I
that'd
might.
be great. That'd be great.
Yeah, we keep saying we're going to clean out the closet down.
And now you have a serious reason to clean out that closet because we want those pictures.
that would be
Whatever you
great.
got, we want.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
So getting to the Son of Sam year. No, getting to let's talk about when he leaves for the army and a little bit more about your friend's warning. So he leaves for the army, and then what happens in your life at that point? Like, you just did your thing. Not that not like you were his girlfriend or anything, but like, where did you go? Did you leave Co-op City?
For a short while.
Okay.
Yeah, in 1972 and 73, we went to Albuquerque. We were going to actually move there
Okay.
because I didn't want to go to Evander Childs High School. And once we were there, I had gotten so homesick that all I wanted to do was go back to my friends.
Right.
We would write letters, we would call each other. I was sorry that I had my mother move to Albuquerque because we had family that started moving out there. Cause
Uh-huh.
I have a big family, but we all started moving out of New York for
Right.
one reason or another. So we were going to start a new life there. Well, it just so happens that my mother had sublet the apartment so that in case we wanted to move back, at least we had the apartment. Well, she had fallen in love with somebody. They were going to get married, so we came back to pack up the apartment and close it and the whole bit. I would not pack up my stuff. I was determined to stay in Co-op City with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
No ifs, ands, or buts. I was downstairs and I was hanging out with my friends crying. I did not want to leave them. Well, when I got back upstairs, my mother had gotten a phone call. The guy broke up with her and we got to stay.
Uh-huh.
So I was elated. I was so happy
That's
that
great.
we weren't, yeah. So my friends were happy and
Do you remember when Berkowitz left for the army?
I was so upset because all the guys were leaving, and a lot of people started to disappear little by little.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there were so many of us that it just, you don't even realize
Right.
until one day you wake up and like, you know, I haven't seen this person in a long time. I wonder what happened to them.
Right.
You know, oh yeah, well they graduated out of high school, they went to college away from Co-op, and they never come back. Or if they come back, you don't see them.
Right.
Yeah,
So
it's like when I graduated high school, my mother took us up here in upstate Dutchess County. 6 months I was miserable.
right.
I went back down, and my parents had split up, and I went back down and lived with my father. I could not. There's no way I was staying. I mean, you know, it was like Green Acres, so I just went back
Right,
down with
right.
my friends, and I was happier in the Bronx.
It's funny that because I was the same way too, and I could never leave New York. But you know, driving up here today, I was like, I love this upstate New York. I want to be here. I want to move out
Yeah,
of New York
Things
City.
are nicer upstate, and you know, my other place further up, it's like living on heaven. So,
Right. Right.
Yeah, stay out of the city, people.
Exactly. So Maria, so Berkowitz goes to the army, and did he communicate with you while he was in the army?
I don't remember. I just remember Ed and I communicating.
And repeat the story for the audience. What did Ed have to say?
just he wanted me to stay away from him, that he just wasn't acting normal, that there was something wrong with him, and that I wasn't safe with him.
Really?
Yeah. But the thing is when he came home, he was Dave. He wasn't David Berkowitz.
Right.
He was Dave, the nice guy.
So
Yeah,
even with
our
this
friends.
warning from Ed, he still was no different to you.
Yeah, I could tell a difference.
So did you ever ask Ed, why did you say that?
Maybe. It's too long ago.
Is Ed still alive?
No, unfortunately. Yeah, he passed away about 5-6 years ago.
Oh.
A lot of my friends have passed away from Co-op City. There's as many as are still alive because there were so many of us that a lot
Right.
had, you know.
I mean, just all this amazing oral history, all, that's why it's so important to get
As soon as
people like
possible.
Maria on tape about this.
Yeah, but there's, people have lost contact with some people, like Lenny, even though he wasn't that far away, being in Mount Vernon,
Mm-hmm.
which was just a couple of minutes outside of Co-op City, I have no idea where he is.
Right. Well, maybe
To
we
this
can
day.
find them, and maybe, maybe we can find Lenny and John, and maybe we can get a round table going and invite you, but we're not done with you quite yet. So so you didn't communicate with Berkowitz in the Army. He didn't send you letters, anything like
I
that.
don't think so.
Did he ever send you any letters?
Not that I can remember. But I mean, I threw away a lot of stuff
Right.
through the years, because back then you didn't have cell phones and
Right.
emails and text messages.
And you didn't
So
realize
everything-
the
yeah.
importance of some of this. So did he? So it's amazing that you were a witness to his Yonkers apartment. That's pretty
Yeah,
mind
I didn't
blowing.
know that.
And especially while Son of Sam is going on, are you sure about that timeline?
If it wasn't out in the public yet.
Right.
So, because after he started the shootings, we were nervous, especially because, like me, I had long brown hair and I was thin and the whole bit, and it sounded like he was after me.
Right.
And like I had a boyfriend who wanted to go hang out in the car to neck, and I was like, no, I felt uncomfortable. I was like, well, how do you know we're not going to be the next one shot?
Right. Right.
But I'm sure if Dave would have saw us, he wouldn't have shot us. So.
It's amazing. So then he gets arrested, you see him there, and you couldn't believe that it was your friend Dave.
Yeah, who knew? And then the weirdest thing is that my company used to like have softball games, do stuff after work,
Mm-hmm.
and there were basketball games that we went to. They started playing in schools. We got permission so that the guys would play basketball and the girls would watch them. And I could hear them talking about David Berkowitz and pointing to me that I was his friend and stuff like that. And
Wow.
so I learned not to tell people that I know him,
Mm.
because I didn't like the reactions that I was hearing, what they were saying about him. And
When he was in Yonkers, did he ever talk about anything satanic or occult or
no,
nothing?
nothing.
Wow.
Nothing. It was just a
Amazing.
Co-op City
It's just-
conversation. Just,
He didn't have any books that you noticed, or
no, the apartment was pretty empty.
just like the fireman
Right,
said.
right. And I heard he was a neat freak in general, that he
Mhm.
kept everything in good shape. I mean, we can speculate till the cows come home about all this. The answer is we need to talk to David Berkowitz, of course, about these anomalies, because he's supposed to be this crazed killer frothing at the mouth, waiting to kill all these
Mhm.
women with long hair, part of a Satanistic
But
cult.
he obviously wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, from the people who knew him the best, he was like the nicest guy, and hanging out during the Son of Sam reign and spree,
Yeah.
and not a word about Satan, occult,
It sounds like he just got in over his head at some point
Did he?
with these people.
It's very very possible. Did he talk about drugs and doing drugs?
No?
Did he talk about LSD, doing LSD in the army, anything like that?
Not that I can remember, no.
So you didn't notice any change in his personality despite Ed's warning to you?
No, that's why I felt comfortable with going to the apartment and hanging out.
And so once he was arrested, was there any further communication with him?
Oh, no. I mean, it was just a mind-blowing thing. And I mean, the group that knew him, we would talk about it, and just, it blew our minds that this couldn't be the Dave that we knew.
Right, so everyone had the same reaction.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you could talk to as many people that I hung out with, that hung out with Dave after we stopped, hanging out. They would have the same reaction as me. Just, he was a nice guy. He wouldn't hurt anybody.
Did you ever hear, because it doesn't sound like you were involved in the drug scene in Co-op City,
No,
but
that's
did you?
not true.
Okay.
All right, well then in this case, maybe you know the answer to this question. I heard that Untermeyer Park was popular in Co-op City, that there was a pipeline that kids knew in Co-op to go up to Untermeyer Park to get drugs.
I didn't know any of that.
You didn't know that, okay. Did you ever hear of Berkowitz? I got a woman who called me and she said that she saw him coming out of the reeds naked near Co-op City
Never
with his
heard
pants
that.
down. He never struck you as a pervert or a skell or a sex deviant, none of that.
None of that.
Did he, I'm just trying to find any aspect of his
Yeah.
personality that might be wrong and
This
or
is-
off,
this is
and we're not
amazing.
getting it.
It's amazing. The difference between the perception of him
Right.
and what he really was like.
Even take away the whole stupid Daily News BS, but talk about Maury Terry's narrative, which is him being this guy hanging out in the park in the middle of the night with these Satan worshipers, and no other people were involved with him. That's not even true.
I can't imagine. He must have went to some of these rituals or meetings, or isn't it obviously met with John Carr and Carr?
Yeah, and the crazy thing, Maria, we're doing all this research that I don't think you really know about, because I don't think you've been following the video series, but David Berkowitz himself says that he knew all these child traffickers and child pornographers and pimps and guys, and Roy Cohn and all of these famous people he was going to parties with while he was in this cult. That's, even he's admitting it. What do you think of that?
That's mind blowing. I've never heard of this until now.
And you've never heard of him hanging out with any deviant people in Co-op
No.
City or even after?
No, there wasn't any. Everybody was friends. Kids had fights, but
Right.
Unless he led like a double life that he was so great at keeping.
Was he good at keeping secrets? Was he...
he was a quiet kid. But he was very respectful, and he was, once you made friends with him, he was friendly.
So, I'm just trying to think, is there anything that we missed that you wanted to say? Would you care? We can edit this out if you don't want to, so don't be afraid to just say, no, I don't want to talk about this. But you had mentioned that Gary isn't your only friend who was a victim of David Berkowitz, that you also have someone else in your life who
My husband.
tell us about that, if you don't mind.
Well, we don't talk about it because my husband is very against David Berkowitz, and he knows that I'm his friend, and I will defend him.
But what was your husband's relation to?
I can't remember which, for some reason I think Stacy is in my mind that he knew. But it was a girl, I think, that went to Columbus High School.
That would have been only in the Bronx.
Right. Yeah, because my husband grew up in Parkchester.
Right.
So I didn't meet my husband until 1981.
But he knew a victim of David
Yes,
Berkowitz,
yeah.
allegedly.
Yeah, one of the girls that he shot was a close friend of my husband.
So you're like in the middle of this. 1 degree from Gary and Valentina, and then your husband has a. I mean, it's amazing that we found you. I mean, this is unbelievable. Did just a couple more questions,
Okay.
and then we'll wrap it up. He never talked about being in a cult, knowing anybody. He didn't. Did he mention any friends in Yonkers that he had? Their names?
No, it was just a Co-op City hangout in a Yonkers location.
Right.
You know, it was no different than me being in North Carolina with my girlfriends.
Right.
So we were in a different location, different state, but yet we were Co-op City.
So I think that's pretty much it. I want to just ask you one final question, and of course, if you have anything that you remember that you want to bring up, because this was amazing insight into David Berkowitz, his childhood, his friendships.
Mm-hmm.
This was, and I hope this is just part one, in the sense that I would love you to talk to any friends you have, and maybe we can have a roundtable discussion about this, because that would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had David Berkowitz's ear right now, and could either look him in the face or over Zoom or on a phone call, what would you say to David Berkowitz, to Dave?
Hi, how are you? It's been a long time. You know, do you remember me? And he'd probably say yes. You know.
I'm sure he'd remember you.
So, yeah, they say my face has never changed.
No, but you don't forget the people you grow up with.
Yeah, you
I'm
never
still in touch
do.
with a lot of people I grew up with. And, you know, one of my closest friends who I went to grammar school with, that Val and I went to grammar school with, was Val's best friend, female-wise.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Val was my best friend as a female, but my friend was the two of them. They were girlfriends, best girlfriends, and to this day. So.
Right, exactly. Those bonds are strong. So you wouldn't have any other message for him? Because he may see this.
Just the fact that I feel bad that so many people think that he's some kind of a monster, and that what the news has made
Portrayed him as
this monster, that I feel so bad that I would be in a room. I would not be afraid to sit next to him and have a conversation with him. There would be no fear. I would just want to, you know, like,
what happened?
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, what turned you into this, you know, killer?
Now, I thought that was my last question, but I just thought of another one, and we can end on this. Did you have you heard the rumors that he didn't do all these alone, and that he was a part of a group?
No, well, from what I read in the newspaper, whatever, like 2020 shows I would watch. I didn't get to read the books. I would like to get my hands on some copies, and I would read them.
Right.
I watched the documentary that they did for Netflix with him, but I have to do it when my husband's not around.
Right.
You know,
It's a very
Yeah, because he
anti-pro.
only did 2 of the incidents. He didn't do them all. He was at all of them, but he didn't.
According to his own words, he was
Right.
at all of them, doing things like scouting, getaway driving.
the
But
getaway car.
but the incidents that he did, according to his own words, he said the Bronx was my territory.
Right.
So he killed Valentina and Alexander
And Donna.
Loria and
And
shot
wounded
Jody Valenti, all within a 3-block radius, right there on Burr Avenue, and then the Hutchinson River Parkway Service Road. So, all right, any last words?
Yeah, because he knew all the spots that we would hang out, you know, with our boyfriends in the car. I mean, going to Orchard Beach at night.
What about Pelham Bay Park?
Well, Pelham Bay Park was kind of attached to to Orchard,
Orchard.
Beach. Yeah, because Orchard Beach is a big place.
That's on the way to City Island.
Because it's rumored that Orchard Beach was another place where this cult would meet. The group that
Orchard
he was
Beach
supposedly
is a popular
involved with.
place for everyone to go to.
Right.
I've been
Yeah,
there.
all year round.
Right.
It wasn't just, swimming season. It was, because like we used to play ball in the streets and stuff like that, and then
Right.
we'd get in trouble with security. So then, the groups would start hanging out in Orchard Beach,
Mhm.
so that they, could throw basketball, football around or whatever, smoke pot,
Right.
A lot of us hung out on Central Avenue in Yonkers. Remember Fuddruckers?
Oh yes,
Sounds
yes.
like a curse that's cleaned up.
Oh, Fuddruckers, was that near General Cinema?
Yeah.
I used to work at General. Of course, I'm 20 years younger than. Well, no, not even that much.
you're
15 years younger.
You're about 12 years younger.
12 years younger.
13 years younger.
So I always thought Fuddruckers was my generation.
No, Fuddruckers was there a long time, and a lot of people hung out there. There was I forget the building, but there was one building that just had video. Not
Nathan's.
Video, not video. Yeah, Nathan's.
Nathan's.
Nathan's, yeah.
And that's the
I was gonna
first
say
date
that.
I had with my girlfriend.
Me too.
That I mentioned in the other video. After I had to give up the idea for yeah, we hung out there a lot. One guy would drive and he would get his one car because we usually had a friend that only had a car. One friend had a car. We'd all pile in, moon everybody on the way over. That was a big thing. Mooning.
Oh, yeah.
And we'd hang out at Fuddruckers and play the video games and. Yeah, that was a big hangout. I've been there a million times. So yeah, I would hang out in Co-op City, Yonkers, but I never met Maria, never met David Berkowitz.
Yeah.
But it was a big area,
Right. Right.
So.
Well.
Yeah, and after, we got old enough, we would go to the bars and stuff like that. The discos
Mhm.
and stuff like that. I mean, we went all over the place. It was amazing that I could leave my house, go downstairs, sit in front of my building, and I'd be all alone. And a minute later, somebody would walk over, and we'd start talking.
Right.
Somebody else would come over, and next thing I know, I'd have a group of people.
It's a different time.
Very different time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you were never lonely for more than a minute.
Right, right.
It was amazing.
Well, I think that we have some more work to do after this interview. I would, in fact, love to reconnect David Berkowitz with Maria if there was some way to do that. Go visit him in jail, make that work out. Because boy, would I love to see that
I'd
conversation.
love to be there, but
Yeah.
I'm not,
And maybe we can speak to other friends who might have some remembrances. So Maria, you're definitely part of this new crowdsourced investigation that we're doing. Your oral history was so appreciated. We're so glad that you came up and spent your time with
thank
us.
you.
Gary, I want to thank you for having us in your home.
I'll do anything for you.
I appreciate that, Gary. And Maria, until next time, I just want to say thanks again.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, and that was fantastic. So everybody, I just want to say thank you for watching, and we will see you guys at the next video. Thank you very much.
How old are you?
Huh?
How old are you?
Oh, you're gonna make me tell?
Come on, I'm 65.
63.
Oh, so it's not that bad.
Luckily, maybe I have good genes or something. I don't look it, so thank God for that.
So people don't believe I'm 65. So.
No, I don't believe it either.